Hey, it's DVJ, back again. We're going to go back to tactics. Using tactics for intelligent creatures, using them in your setting, and I was using animals as a simple method of describing their tactics. Mainly because by using the animals, you can write these down as a game master, and when the players balk at you surprising them or taking advantage of them or claiming that you changed on the fly some kind of tactic to take advantage of them, you can say, no, I wrote this down previously. You guys just didn't play smart. Now, is that a knock on players? No, it isn't. But it does allow players to start to grow tactically when you as a game master start using battle tactics. And I don't mean using tactics like numbers, like I'm going to get a +2 or I'm going to use cover or something, which you can. Well, what I mean by tactics are splitting up, intelligent creatures, having them attack from different angles, attack from range, attack and run, steal things, pack attack on one player character, things like that. That when making those decisions, on one hand you want to be fair to the players, but on the other hand you want to be fair to the setting. You want to say, hey, listen, these dangerous creatures are nasty. They will jump pile on the weakest member. They will do these things. And so by creating these tactics and using these tactics, one or more, or flowing from one or more during a battle, your player characters may start to learn how some of these creatures attack. Maybe hobgoblins attack differently than bugbears, differently than gnolls, different than goblins, or other intelligent creatures like lizardmen or troglodytes or something. Or they can discover that some creatures are far more intelligent. Maybe a band of ogres is far less intelligent than a band of frost giants, and using their tactics. So anyway, I've got 6 more animals and how that translates into battle tactics. All right. So the first one's going to be crab, and the crab probably sounds similar to, and is quite similar to, a combination of the turtle and the scorpion that I mentioned in part 1. All right. So the crab, you imagine this crab skittering along. It's got a hard shell. It's got these 2 claws. So the battle tactic of using the crab is that you're going to have a strong, highly defensive center. 10, 15, 50. Let's go with lizardmen or troglodytes. They're going to be close-knit. They're going to be packed in together. They're going to have their long spears. They're going to have their bladed weapons. They're going to be defending themselves. And like a crab with a hard shell, they're not going to be easy to sneak up on. Okay, they're going to have everyone with their backs to each other. They're going to make sure they don't get surrounded. Unfortunately, does this make it a big target for, let's say, a spellcaster that has an area effect attack? Yes. And here's where the crab pincer effect comes in. When the player characters come out, they will pincer in the party group, right? So let's say you have 15 members. They may send out 3 and 3, or 2 and 2. Or if they got 50 people, they'll send out 10 and 10. And they will pincer in, striking at the group, maybe into a melee combat, and then retract those injured members. Those members that were able to get away will retract back into the core defensive group. So when the player characters attack, they're like, wow, they're like turtled up. And then all of a sudden, a group will split off, trying to surround the player characters using a pincer effect to come in from different angles. So if my face is the crab, and it's pretty crabby, you got the 2 pincer effects coming in to possibly surround, completely enclose the group, and if the player characters are not completely enclosed, they can come back into a tighter group, to come back in again and come back out. Now, especially if they have any kind of like magic, if they're mounted, maybe they're on dire wolves or wargs, or if they're troglodytes and lizard men, they're riding on the back of what's the thing, a basilisks or any kind of giant lizards or something like that. They would make the best ones to do the pincer effect. Now, crabs skitter. They move. They're not like turtles. They don't stay still. So you could easily throw in maybe like a siege weapon or some kind of armored mobile vehicle or something like that, pulled by giant lizards, and they attack from this thing. Or the group is just highly mobile, and they know to move through their own environment, especially their troglodytes. They're down in the Underdark, and they move through these caverns, defending themselves and then coming out in pincer attacks. The next animal would be the wolf. Okay, and the wolf is a pack animal. It's aggressive. It hunts and it kills. And this kind of tactic is one where, especially when the players are hurt, the players are tired, they've expended their spell slots, they don't have many hit points, they want to relax, and the wolf tactic is to never let them rest. You come after them, you hunt them down, you run, you make them run, you make them back up and think that they can stop, and then you hunt them some more. You get them tired. You have them expend their resources out there. You know, the wolf, instead of being compacted into a group where it can be hit by like ranged attacks or something like that, the wolf will spread out. The wolf, like the jackal, like the hyena, like the coyote, they will use pack tactics. They will spread out. They will be separated by maybe as much as hundreds of feet apart. They know what each one knows what their place is. They know to strike and run. They know to harry them. They know to make the player characters fear for their lives. They may use deception and make it seem like there's more enemies out in the woods than there are. Maybe the hobgoblins take helmets and they light torches behind these nasty helmets to make it look like their eyes are on fire. And you're like, oh man, there's 68 of them? Well, no, there's only 15 of them. It just looks like there's more of them. Okay? They'll maybe use very smart, intelligent tactics to surround and run after the player characters. And especially if they're hurt, that whole long rest, short rest thing will not happen. And the player characters are going to get frustrated. We need to relax. We need to rest. Why can't we find a place to relax and rest? Because you just attacked the enemy on their home turf. They will not let you do it. Okay? And this is definitely a case of using that pack tactic to completely surround the player characters. And then go after maybe the strongest member or the most dangerous member and snatch the player characters out of the group one by one. A third one is the spider. Spider tactics are slow, very methodical, very patient. Just as the creature, the cave fisher that hides up, or the choker, or there's a slime that does the same thing too, that sits up on the ceiling or something. Or the piercer that drops the piercer, that's the organic thing that looks like a stalactite that drops down from the ceiling and pierces through, the bodies of, player characters that go underneath it. Spider tactics, they will wait. They will spin a web and wait to pounce on the party. Now, the difference between the others and the spider is that the spider tactic, they will make sure they know the strength of the party first, okay? More or less, they will want to know, will this trap work? The trap won't work, we won't spring the trap. We'll let them walk by. And then when they come back through here, maybe when they're weaker, we will spring the trap. Definitely, they will use nets. They will use entrapping techniques, maybe dropping down walls or some kind of barrier around the player characters. Maybe some sticky adhesive on the floor. Of course, pit traps always work. Anything to surround the party or even surround one enemy, what they consider enemy, one of the player characters, to surround them and entrap them and make sure they cannot leave. And then later, assault each member one by one. So if the spellcaster is the dangerous one, drop the net, physically drop the net on them, boom, snatch them up. Okay, who's the next one? The paladin. Paladin has been slaughtering our people. Okay, drop the net on him, boom, snatch him up. Oh, there's the thief. Where is she going? Drop the net on her, snatch him up. Now, of course, using real spiders makes this technique a whole lot better. All right, you've got real spider webs. Player characters can get caught in those spider webs. They can be harried to fall into it, so maybe enemies chase them and the player characters retreat into those webs. Also, the technique would be to attack the party and then retreat, and as the party follows, the party falls into the web of deceit. Now, of course, it does not have to be an actual web. It could be the troglodytes know that there's a black pudding somewhere, and they lead the party into the black pudding and the gray ooze and the yellow mold and the other nasty, oozes and jellies and things like that. Leading them, because many times player characters are just like, oh, let's just run into the fight. I don't have any plan. Oh, we're just going to run and kill them. And then when the player characters run into that area, bam, you attacked, move the rock, makes the black pudding fall on top of the party, surround the party, bam. I would say that the spider technique is best used for some of the more intelligent creatures. Far, far intelligent. The ones that are patient, that know how to split the party up, that recognize who's the most dangerous against them, and attack. Another one is the Vulture. Again, the Vulture, like the monkey that I mentioned in part 1, the Vulture literally picks off the dead. Okay, Vulture technique, in a way, is using a technique to take advantage of when the player characters are involved in another encounter. All right, so the player characters are fighting a party of drow, dark elves. And they're being harried, they get backed into a corner, they're throwing spells, and the group of troglodytes follows along and attacks the party, the weakest member of the party, to pick his bones, right? They're not there to help the dark elves at all. They may even be enemies, but they know these dark elves can take people out. Dark elf shoots a poison dart, paralyzes the ranger or the bard in the group. Troglodytes sneak in, snatch the ranger or the bard up, steal his stuff, maybe cut his throat, and leave. It could be that the troglodytes want to steal a potent magical item. They want to capture the magic user, or the wizard, the sorcerer or something, and take them back to their own lair and use them as a bargaining chip against the dark elves. But this is a matter of like the wandering monster, the group that the player characters may have encountered before. The troglodytes run, the characters go through the Underdark, they fight some drow elves, and here come the troglodytes back with their Vulture techniques. Now, this one is going to have a lot of contention because some player characters are not going to want to have the bones of their character picked over. Many times, hey, I want to be healed. I want you to bring me back. And by the way, somehow magically that makes all my equipment ready. Somebody can come and steal all their stuff. I'm not going to cuss. And keep it. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they slice the throat of the halfling that just got knocked out by the poison dart? He's just laying there. The player characters aren't tending to him. They want to fight the dark elves and steal their magic items. Hey, player character's like, oh, well, I'm at 0 hit points. I'm okay till somebody comes and rescues me. And when that player goes to play on their iPad, Game Master comes in and says, okay, 4 troglodytes, they come in, they steal your shit, and cut your throat, and you're dead. Now, as a Game Master, I'm really not an all or nothing person. Like, I'm not, oh, you're alive or you're dead. I love complications. But that makes sense to me. that makes sense that somebody's going to pick over the bones. And which is why players should have more loyalty to their group if that's how they are supposed to be, if they're good, and why going into somebody else's territory is dangerous, and also sets forth your place, your play method as a game master to say, okay, not all the creatures are killer, but these are. You know, the Drow Elves, yeah, they'll enslave you, but the Troglodytes, they have no reason to enslave you. Their thing is they're going to cut your throat, eat you, and take your stuff, right? I've got two more, the Tiger and the Dragon. The Tiger would seem like it would be similar to the Wolf, but no. The Tiger attacks after waiting for a long time. And the Tiger was definitely a high level, highly intelligent, planned attack by an enemy that knows the weaknesses of the party. We're talking Mind Flayers and Illithids. We're talking Githyanki. We're talking Outer Plane creatures. We're talking demons and daemons and devils and modrons. We're talking angels and archons and devas and solars. We're talking when the Tiger tactic is not necessarily so one of striking and with its claws, but more or less sitting back, looking from above, waiting patiently, and striking at the party where they are the weakest. The Tiger technique is striking at the party when the mage or the sorcerer has expended their spells. Striking at the party when the characters are out of their ability to heal themselves. Striking at the party when they've split up. The rogue is going one direction, the ranger's going another direction, the paladin's rushed ahead, the other player characters, 2 or 3 player characters, are left to fend for themselves. One is already injured, and then you strike. Now, Tiger would be mixed with any of the other techniques, but used by a brilliant, used by a high IQ enemy. And that is where you as a game master are going to have to, your metal's going to be tested, because your player characters are going to really want to understand, like, you specifically are attacking our party at our weakest points, taking advantage of us. So why should we even play in your games anymore? You're just a killer DM. You spring the Tiger on them after you've exhausted all the other techniques, all the other tactics. When they still haven't learned their lesson, oh well. But by now, if you've used 4, 5, 8 other tactics against the player characters, then they know to expect to be attacked by their weakest, to be attacked at their weakest. And especially if they're going after like a dragon, they're going after a demon, they're going after a devil. Those creatures will always attack at the weakest point. The last one is the dragon. And the dragon technique, dragon tactic is not so much wings, fire breathing, tail crushing. It is the act of using high levels of magic and power and energy to defeat your player characters. It is not just trapping them behind, to push them into a falling pit. It is crushing them under a mountain. It is having, instead of just having troglodytes, they are armed with magical wands, all of them. It is using all the magical aspects. It is playing your creatures as your players would play them. It is using all those techniques, quote unquote, buffing up your enemies with spells where the shaman, blesses the enemy, and then the enemy attacks, and then they attacked with magic weapons, and then those magic weapons, someone uses a spell to make them grow large, and another one uses a spell to give them mage armor, and another one uses a spell fireball wand while the others are attacking from another direction. It is using every element, stacking feats and using all those quote unquote power gamey techniques and just use them against the player characters. The ultimate bad guys for that you want to pull out of your pocket, and this is my last hint for you game masters out there that are stuck with this. Write down the stats. In essence, copy, photocopy everything your player characters can do. Everything. Every player that has a character, copy them all. Change the names, change the gender, change the races a little bit, change how they look, but make your enemies have the exact same stats as your player characters, and then play them. And see how pissed off, how upset, how distraught your own players will get if they are not fully invested players, and then just spring it on them and go, oh no, I just made a animalistic bad guy. I called him a gnoll, but he's really just your barbarian character. Oh, the warlock? Oh, I just made him an evil cultist, but he's exactly like your warlock. Oh, you're shape-changing druid? Oh, I just made this an elemental master, but he's exactly like your druid. Same thing. Use the exact same. That teaches a lesson if you need to teach a lesson. A far more important lesson than anything about how power gaming affects people, how unfair people think certain techniques or tactics are. Using those same tactics against the player characters when they start stacking on feats, stacking on spells on top of each other, and when the game master does the exact same thing, how seemingly unfair that is by using the same characters, the same techniques, the same stats, and just changing the flavor of it. See how that goes. So anyway, this is part 2 of using tactics in the game. And then you can just write little notes down like 14 hobgoblins, monkey, 37 goblins, snake, 12 troglodytes. I'll put down vulture, tiger, and falcon. And then that way you can just get this idea of how they attack, how they defend themselves, what their secondary action would be. Well, if they're getting defeated, what are they going to do? They're probably going to retreat. They're going to rabbit out of here. That kind of thing. So anyway, DBJ, just throwing some ideas out there, and as always, create, don't destroy. Create greater story elements, create tactics, have your NPCs and have your creatures react organically where it makes sense, and don't destroy unless it's to destroy simple-minded, childish thinking to bring people into a more enlightened gaming experience. I'll say destroy that. Anyway, DBJ, and I'm out. Sorry I've been away for so long.